Outside of SEO team lead, I'm not the godfather of SEO. I also haven't worked with giant martech companies. I'm just a normal dude. I have 3 kids. My emotional support coffee is over on that table there. I win awards for most opinionated. I love to tell jokes. I think honestly, a lot of us in this room, we kind of treat marketing like we're on the front lines of the battlefield. Sometimes we have to remember not to. I've been doing this for about a decade, maybe just a little bit sarcastic, and I'm really a firm believer in just no nonsense strategy. We don't have to make things complicated. Let's just go find what it is that needs to be done and sold and do it. So with that, a little bit about AmericanEagle.com if you don't know who we are. Digital marketing company, custom web apps, Sitefinity partner, basically anything and everything in the digital space. We got your back. We can help you with that. Love to do it. So, SEO, AEO, GEO, pick your acronym. Think of what's his name out. What's happening right now? Raise your hand if you have seen this headline in the last 12 months. Raise your hand if you believe this headline is true. Good. There's some forward thinking, see some members here. So the reason for this is SEO has died many times to the point where I kind of just scroll past and discussed. The fact of the matter is, with every major update, Google change, shift in the market, somehow SEO still increases in market valuation. Why is that? It's because we kind of have the benefit of Google owning the internet, for lack of a better way to describe it. And so we can latch onto what is Google doing. But realistically, the whole purpose of SEO is to understand how people are searching for what they want to find. And as long as people are searching for what they want to find, we have the opportunity to go get them. So I want to take one step back because oftentimes data like this doesn't really catch a headline. It's not very exciting. And it doesn't really speak kindly to some of the up-and-coming tech in the industry. We talk about the sheer scale of where people are going to get their information online. Google is the behemoth, no questions asked. Google is still growing. The data shows that. 13.7 billion searches a day are still happening on Google. It is by far the king of discovery online, period. Contrast that with ChatGPT, which is the behemoth in the space for LLMs, AI, product discovery, where people go to get their information. They're sitting at about 2.5 billion searches a day, prompts. Now, I'm not going to say that these numbers are small. 2.5 billion is a ton. But the fact of the matter is, when we're looking at where the ROI can be found, it still lies with Google in spades. So the big question that I get a lot is, yeah, sure, this may be the case now. This may be the case today. What about in the future? What is the future potential of LLMs? Where is this going? Talk about agentic search. Both the guys over here brought up great points about how browsers are bringing in agents. Products are bringing in agents that consumers are going to be able to use. So we have to acknowledge the shift, right? So a few stats here that I think are at least helpful for us to acknowledge the shift. A study put out just last month by Open Media, their respondents said 55% of them, AI is their primary research tool. Now, I'm a bit of a skeptic. Orbit Media probably put it out to people they have access to, and those people are probably AI forward. My guess is every person in this room uses AI every day. That's not the vast majority of people out there, period. And so we have to kind of mind shift. We are the room, we are an edge case. People using AI every day, intentionally. Another good study put out by Search Engine in the beginning of the year. So 37% of their respondents start their journey with AI, which I think that's a much more believable statistic because it doesn't take Google out of the picture. It means at some point in the journey, traditional search is still in. And then the last one, this is what really gets people excited. I've seen a bunch of different statistics on this. AI traffic, when it does come to your website, which frankly is a rarity, converts at a much, much higher rate. Reason for that is because the AI journey is so personalized. I can tell it what my shoe size is. I can tell it how old I am. I can tell it the last time I went to the doctor. I can tell it what my credit score is. I wouldn't advise that. And it'll give you a specific recommendation for the right type of fish tank because now it has all this background on it. And so the question then is, how do we balance where to target our efforts? And I think this slide really does a good job of kind of telling us, what the trajectory of some of these tools is, because this answers the question of where is this growth path going? So what we're seeing here is ChatGPT, and this is their monthly usage over time from the day they launched until just last month. Now, I'm not saying that they haven't grown. This is a wild growth trajectory. First consumer app to ever reach 1 million users in a single week. Never been done before. Within just a year, 300 million users a month. Now, cresting 800, nearly 1 billion users a month. That's big moves. The fact of the matter is, this is a room full of C-suite members. Where is the ROI coming from? I'm a marketer. I'm a boots on the ground marketer. I come to you with an idea. I say, this is going to work. You say, great, come back to me with an expected lift. And then we'll decide whether it gets implemented or not. What is the lift? Where is the ROI? How do we track it down? Honestly, I think the C-suite is a little bit removed, and we need to get real with the fact that tracking our data, especially when it comes to highly anonymized channels like LLMs, Google search, all privacy laws that are coming into play, you have to get real with the fact that some marketing efforts are done specifically for the purpose of getting eyeballs on the brand, not necessarily for the fact that you can track down, they searched this phrase, they clicked this thing, they saw this page, they scrolled down, they went to the forum, now we have a lead. And so all that to say, Google is sending 190 times, not 190% more, 190 times the amount of website traffic as ChatGPT is. And so from that perspective, we all know that we can track website traffic to conversions, conversion rate, leads, revenue per visit, all the way down the channel there. And so when we try to understand the efforts, again, like I said, where do we put our eggs? Which basket do we put our eggs in? ChatGPT and LLMs, they are not quite there. And I think this slide before kind of shows an interesting trend in usage where publicity for these particular tools hampers the growth. So ChatGPT's growth is exploding until August of last year. And then they started to have publicity issues, eco-friendly issues. They started to have data issues. They started to have just bad PR. This model's not good. ChatGPT 5 is terrible. So people stop using the tool. And that's not to say that the tool's not still growing, but the fact of the matter is the growth trajectory that people were saying, man, Google, nobody's going to use Google in 3 years. That trend didn't pull out. So while I do think we can expect that more people will continue to use LLMs to find brands, that's not what's happening. So where exactly does this intersect into SEO versus AEO versus GEO? Pick your acronym. If we are forward thinking and we do still want to take advantage of the visibility that we can get from LLMs, there's two major ways that we can go about doing that with our marketing strategy. One is to be included in the training data. This is frankly a black box. We don't know exactly how these LLMs are selecting what gets put in the training data. We don't know when it refreshes. We don't know really anything. They haven't publicized it for the fact that, honestly, people like me would try to exploit it for the purpose of building business. But it's one avenue that we can take, and if I have time, I'll share something really cool that Starbucks did recently. If you hadn't seen it, I thought it was really cool. 2, this is where it's interesting. Being cited as a source in LLM responses. We know that modern AI tools are pulling information, up-to-date information from the internet because that was a massive feature that was missing when they first launched. I don't know how many of you used ChatGPT when it first came out. You tried to, hey, what's this thing happening in the news? I don't know. August 2021 is all the data I got. Sorry, put back later. And so they quickly built a way for LLMs to interpret what you were saying, create their own questions, and then go ask those questions agentically on guess what source. Google. Then they pull the Google results in and feed you a generated AI response that says, here's what we think. Also, here's where we got the information. Website. And so from my perspective, getting into a citation within the LLM is where we're going to see that traffic lift. And that's trackable today. Google Analytics 4, you can already pull referral traffic from these LLMs. So if you're not doing that, go ask somebody who knows how to work Google Analytics 4 and say, I want to know how much traffic is coming from these websites. And you can pull in all the referrers from the different LLM models. So bringing down the different types of usage. That 2.5 billion queries a day number from ChatGPT. That number actually gets a lot smaller when you think about use cases for ChatGPT. Only about 40% of the use of ChatGPT is for discovery. The rest of it is, make me sound not like a jerk when I'm writing this email to my boss. Hey, write this thing for vibe coding. I think Scott called me yesterday in the podcast, hey, patient 0 for vibe coding random tools. The rest of it is be my boyfriend. Tell me where I should go on vacation. It's not product discovery, commercial intent. So less than half of that 1.5 billion is actually commercial intent type searches and prompts. And so what we then are left with is commercial queries and informational queries. Over half of the time, commercial queries pull from the internet because it needs to be up to date, it needs to be fresh, it needs to be relevant. And 18% of the time for informational queries, they're pulling from the internet too. So more than half of LLM's searches are, or I should say less than half of LLM searches are commercial intent or informational intent. Over half of that information is coming from the internet. Where on the internet, you might ask? Google, most of the time. And if it's not Google, it's Reddit, it's YouTube, it's Wikipedia, it's social media sites. And so then the question becomes, how do we optimize for these things? And this is where the AEO, SEO, GEO conversation gets really convoluted because, to be frank, ranking really good on Google is how you get into the cited listings on ChatGPT and the other LLMs. And so we've started to conflate SEO with how do we optimize for AI and structured data, because that's what LLMs are looking for. And really it's tactics that have been used for 15 years. It's longer than I've been in the industry. It's the same tactics. I interview people weekly for positions at our company. I communicate on LinkedIn. If any of you follow me on LinkedIn, just watch out. I'm just a giant troll. It's fun. Because I have yet to come across a tactic for getting into AI, getting visibility in AI, and yet to come across a tactic that is not just some variation of SEO or really good SEO, as I like to call it. When we talk about SEO, it gets distilled down into sort of some keyword magic across our pages, or getting some backlinks from some cheap guy in Ukraine, but that's not it. SEO was always intended to be a long form marketing strategy across multiple surfaces. And so really what the convergence of AI and SEO has allowed SEOs to do is get buy-in from wonderful people, you guys, for tasks that are hard to quantify. Frankly, how do you quantify the value of a Reddit post? Well, you can't, except for the fact that now we know 1.5 billion people are seeing Reddit posts in their ChatGPT responses. And this gets even a little bit more complex when you start to think about, okay, we're not necessarily concerned about the revenue that's being generated, but we are concerned about the perception of our company. One of the questions that we get asked all the time is quantify this for me. I said, okay, well, let's quantify it in something other than revenue. What if every time you showed up on ChatGPT, it was a negative sentiment about your brand? Then do we have a conversation of opportunity cost? Now, every time somebody searches for something and you come up, your company sucks. That's terrible, but it doesn't necessarily translate evenly to revenue. And then I would also piggyback on that and say, what if every time somebody searched for something around your product or service and you weren't there at all, and it was your competitor instead? How do you quantify that? You can't. But the fact of the matter is, good marketers know that we need to be in front of the people who are willing to buy our products and services, whenever they're ready to do so, whether it's now or whether it's 6 months from now, because they're in the research phase. And so we have AI and search, AI overviews. We have search and AI. ChatGPT goes to Google and gets Google's stuff, brings it back and shows it to you. So you're literally going to Google twice. And then we have AEO and GEO. And so what I would say is, don't let the GEO or AEO gurus, anyone with AEO in their title, probably started as an SEO, and that's good. Let's keep it moving that way. So, talking about AI overviews, I think this is something that is heavily overlooked. AI overviews show on about half of all Google searches now. That's half of 13.7 billion searches a day. An AI tool is now showing up. But this doesn't get them listed because it's not ChatGPT. It's not taking away market share from Google. And so we have to understand that AI overviews are contributing to the LLM experience. If we actually look at the statistics, most normal people are interacting with AI overviews and only AI overviews. And that's their LLM experience. So we take that 13.7, we cut it in half to 6.5 billion. That's still 3 to 4 times the amount of people interacting with AI via AI overviews that never even pick up ChatGPT, period. And so we start to put all of our, we need to stop doing SEO. We've got to do GEO. We have to get into ChatGPT. But the fact of the matter is that even the tiny, minuscule AI portion of Google is still light years beyond the size and the scope of ChatGPT and other LLMs. 92% of AIO responses, so that thing that sits at the top of the Google, which I've actually heard people tell me, isn't ChatGPT just that thing that sits at the top of Google when we do a search? I mean, take a step back. Whoa, no. But that's what real people think. They don't even understand the fact that these systems are different. 92% of AIO responses contain at least one website that's ranking organically within the top 10. What does that mean? If you're not in the top 10, you have an 8% chance of being included at the top of the wall. And so working out different tactics to target only AI doesn't make sense, because the vast majority of people are going to Google, performing a normal person search, best mattress for dude with back pain. And they get the AIO response, and if you're not doing SEO, you're not showing up in the AIO. This one kind of chaps people's khakis a little bit. 35% more clicks if you're included in the AIO. Now, for people that have been in SEO and focusing on digital marketing, focusing on organic search longer than AIOs have been around, they would say, great, now I have to get into this feature to earn back the traffic that Google stole. Yes, unfortunately, that's the case. Google owns it, Google builds it. Google just released their earnings report for Q1, better than ever. And they report that AIO reviews is what people want. It's not going away. So if we want to talk about gaining traffic, something that we can track, something that we can still get some semblance of ROI out of, we have to be doing really good SEO to get into the AIO reviews. So what do you actually do? What is SEO? I feel like we've come full circle. All the way back to SEO. What is it? In my opinion, there are 6 levers that we can pull, things that we should understand. If you're doing SEO now, maybe use this as a guide for, are you doing it well? Are you thinking about the right things? Do you have an agency like American Eagle who is sprinkling some keyword dust, or are they doing intentional research and segmenting out the strategy of SEO? So let's break this down. 6 levers you can pull: content, authority, and expertise. And now I want to preface by saying all of these tactics are really good SEO that happen to contribute to not only Google AI reviews, but ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity and X, Y, and Z. So by doing these things, really good SEO, GEO, if you want to call it that, you can earn that visibility meaningfully. If you're doing good SEO, you're going to see growth in AI, period. One use case, and I'll jump into this in a second. One use case, I have a client, they're an e-commerce client. We have not done a lick of GEO for them in the last year and a half. Yet they went from $3,000 in revenue over a 1-year period to $17,000 in revenue the next year through AI referral traffic specifically. We tracked it because they're an e-commerce brand. We didn't do a lick of GEO. The problem for me is that $17,000 accounted for 0.7% of their revenue, their online revenue for the year. And so that kind of brings me to the top of this whole thing. Where are you, what eggs? Where are you putting your eggs? Which basket? Where are you focused? I understand that ChatGPT and AI, I understand that they are the shining object and there is a lot of potential there. But we're talking 2 years of growth. It went from 7,000 or 3,000 to 17,000. It was 0.7% of their revenue. And we didn't do anything. So the question is, how much more effort would we have had to put in on AEO specific tasks to see a return on that, or see it grow even further? And you would have really quantified that. So if we're going to just stick with SEO and reap the benefits along the way, there's a handful of things that I want to, first, content authority and expertise. So just publishing content to publish content for content's sake, that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is what makes your company unique in the space. What are you bringing to a topic that no other competitor is bringing? And if they are bringing it, how are you improving on that? Are you publishing an original research piece, data that you have that nobody else has? Are you publishing proprietary data or reports? How are you influencing the space? Why does your particular piece of content deserve to rank? Not what's causing it not to rank. Why should it rank? If it's just the same content that everyone else has written, but just your brand, well, now you're relying on your brand equity versus probably all the other companies who are bigger and better than you. And if that's not the case, then you're not leveraging the data that you do have to make a good story for your content. Real people. Nice piece there. Real people matter. Who's responsible for creating the content on your website? Is it just Sally, the marketing person? If that's the case, then you better have a really good story for why your company trusts Sally, the marketing person, to put out really good content. If you don't want to go that route, you have subject matter experts. Get their face, get their name, get their LinkedIn profile, get their Substack linked on the articles that they're responsible for. And if those nerds aren't responsible for writing the content, get them to look at the content, get them to say something about the content, quote it, put it on the page. Google specifically asks for information about who is responsible for the content. And the answer, our company, is not usually good enough. Identify the top questions your buyers ask on those pages. There's no way to know. There's no way to know what your buyers are asking AI because we don't have the data. We can assume we know what they're asking AI, but we don't. So what I would say is a great piece here is Google Search Console. Because that's the vast majority of where people are searching. If you have Google Search Console set up and tracking on your website, you can take that data, export it. You can give thousands of search terms to Claude and say, hey, Claude, give me all the questions that people have asked in the last 16 months that I've shown up for them. My guess is either you have some sort of content about it or it's related to your brand in some way. How can you reinforce that? Next, in structured content formatting, I'm going to fly through this one. If you don't have headings in the content on your website, please add some headings. Nobody wants to read 1,000 words of content without headings. Skim. Is one of these 4 headings relevant to me? If yes, I'm going to read this one paragraph. If it's compelling, I'm going to use something else. Next, FAQ sections. FAQ sections actually are kind of a GEO tactic that people have come to understand because LLMs are also skimming content very quickly. They're looking for headers. They're looking for question answer format. So FAQs at the bottom of your long-form content are great. FAQs at the bottom of service pages are great. FAQs at the bottom of product pages are great. If you don't know what to ask, ChatGPT is a great way to understand what questions people might be asking. Take your content from your page, drop it in ChatGPT and say, I have a buyer who's got this persona. This is the person that we think is going to buy our product. What questions might they ask based on the information that we provided them on this page? ChatGPT comes back with at least some sort of idea. And then you can say, nope, that one's dumb. That's a pretty good question. We should add that. Or, oh, wow, I didn't even think of that question. People ask that all the time. If you have real data from customer service, take that data from customer service and weave it in. Sure, there's something agentic. You can do that to make it so you don't have to do it again. Citations, linkable assets. This is more PR work. How do you take the information that you have as a awesome business in the space and make it public? In this day and age, everyone's kind of giving away their secret sauce. Obviously, you don't want to give away the secret sauce that's going to get your business shut down, but you do want to give away the secret sauce because if you don't, your customers are just going to go find it from someone else because they are. Last 3. Digital PR and brand mentions. Press releases do work. Press releases do work in the fact that AI does care about repetitive information. AI is constantly searching for, LLMs are constantly searching for your brand in connection with a particular topic. The more times that happens repeatedly, now there starts to be a pattern built. When I say Starbucks, you think coffee. It's because you've probably seen Starbucks and coffee together 27,000 times in the last 7 months. Same concept for AI. Press releases are great. We partnered with this company for this thing, press release. We launched a new product, press release. We upgraded this product, press release. Get your brand mentioned with your industry and syndicate it out across as many websites as you can. Press release is a pretty affordable way to do that. Pursue reviews. This one kind of feeds into reputation and trust signal, so I'm going to skip that again. Technical SEO for AI. This is where we kind of get a little scary on the dynamic capabilities of website platforms today. How are we feeding dynamic content to our pages? Can AI bots pick up on JavaScript? The answer is no. If you are using JavaScript to load important information, post, click, post, load, AI is missing the boat. We have clients come in regularly. Look at this really cool thing we've got. And I load it via JavaScript disabled, and all I see is the title of the page. Nothing else is loaded. It's because they have some sort of feature that's based on JavaScript that blocks all that content. Now, I will say, Google has gotten really good at loading JavaScript. They render an HTML version. If that one sucks, they then go back and render the JavaScript version. And if that one makes a lot more sense, they will then assimilate the JavaScript version into their index. AI bots, ChatGPT, Claude, they just flat out don't do it. So if you're using JavaScript, be careful that you're not hiding important content behind JavaScript actions. Robots.txt. This one feels like a softball, but the fact of the matter is there are companies, Cloudflare, who have taken it upon themselves to block AI bots by default, or they give you the ability, tools are giving you the ability to just click a button and block AI bots. And what I found is that for larger companies, some random IT guy 2.5 years ago was like, yeah, we don't want AI on our site, block. And then nobody even thought about it. And now we are in the place where, why aren't we showing up on AI? And it was because somebody 2 years ago thought, no, we don't want AI feeding off of our information. But what we failed to understand was that if AI is not feeding off our information, then we're just not showing up. So that's a really simple one. Go to yourwebsite.com/robots.txt. If you don't have one, get one. And if you do have one, make sure you're not blocking the AI bots from crawling your site unless you have a very, very explicit reason for doing so. Reputation and trust signals. This one is a big one for me. Every person on here, every person in here, every website, according to Google, is a liar when it comes to the quality of your products, what people say about your products, and the value that you bring. Google's quality rater guidelines say to their quality raters, hey, go to this website, read everything you can. Anything that is a review or a testimonial, it's probably fake. Because what better place to curate awesome reviews for your website than people you know, your mom, your brother, employees. Hey, employee, we'll give you a gift card to go write a review from on the website. So what does this mean? Where else is your brand generating positive sentiment? If you're a SaaS company, are you on G2? Are you on Crunchbase? Are real people leaving real reviews about your product? Unbiased? Google Business Profile. If you have a local business or you feed local businesses, are real people leaving real reviews about your business? Brand sentiment in general. Now we've got the Reddit conversation coming into play. Quora. If your website didn't exist, how would people know about your brand? Is it your owned social media channels? Where else can people see you, interact with you, and understand who you are, what you do, and why they should care? Where else? If it's not your website, where else can it be done? That, in my opinion, is the most important piece. If you have companies right now, I would encourage every person here to go take your biggest competitor and Google their name, Google it, and say, XYZ company name, Trustpilot reviews. If they have a Trustpilot and you don't, and they have 3,000 reviews, you have 12, real customer story. That means that your competitor has 3,000 touch points with real people that AI and Google can feed on to get information about the brand, about the product, about the quality that you don't. It's not because your product's worse. It's just that there's virtually zero information about you for AI and LLMs and Google to feed on. So last piece here, this is like 101. You got to figure out how to get more companies to do this effectively. This is the most overlooked areas for just simply information on businesses. Business directories, and I mentioned this a little bit, Crunchbase, Dun & Bradstreet, Bloomberg. If you're a local business, are you a part of that business association? Do you have a listing on that business association? Are they linking to your website? All of these areas, Google Business, Wikipedia. If you're a serious company and you don't have a Wikipedia page today, that's an issue. You can't go find professional Wikipedia page writers and publishers to create that information in conjunction with their experts to make sure that one of the most trusted sources in the world has accurate information on your brand. And lastly, this one's a little bit more difficult for Quora and Reddit. I think the reason these are so important, at least to consider, is they're kind of massively overrepresented in LLMs today, and also on Google. Now, Google seems to be kind of reining in the amount of visibility that Quora has, that Reddit has, but the fact of the matter is, real people are talking about your brand on these platforms. If you're a brand with enough PR, you're a brand with enough visibility, people are talking about forming an opinion. And the worst thing you can do is have somebody Google about your brand and some angry past customer from 9 years ago who complained about you on Reddit shows up on the front page. That's terrible. So we have to figure out a way to get off of our website, get off of Google, get on other platforms and control the narrative about our brand. That, in my opinion, is the biggest way we can influence what's going on in the LLM world. Get off your website, get out in the other areas of the internet, and control the narrative about your brand. So, last 3 things. These are your take homes. These are the things that you can take home and tell somebody else to do. Own your topic, not just the keywords. And I know that this is a topic that gets hammered on. The fact of the matter is, most people are still just searching regular keywords. But the intent behind the keywords matters. And if you can answer the question behind the question with the content on your website or the content on earned channels, you have a much better success rate. 2, SEO and AI visibility are influenced by the same strategy. Yes, there are different takes on the strategy. Yes, there are different variations of the same strategy, but by and large, if you're just doing really good SEO and not just sprinkling keyword dust on your pages, you're going to see the value recruit. Lastly, and then this is the most important one, control your brand narrative everywhere. Obviously, you have control of the brand narrative on your website. You're going to look like a rock star on your website. Hence why Google says, take everything on somebody's website with a grain of salt. They're probably lying. How can you get off of your website, go to other websites, and validate the claims that you make through customer interaction, through case studies, through any of the other channels that I mentioned? Cool. So last piece here, we created a AI readiness quiz. All it allows you to do is see face-to-face. This is what American Eagle thinks you should be doing regarding this topic. I never considered that all the way to, man, we're an expert in that already. Teach you through about 10 different questions, gives you a score, and then obviously we would love to have your information because we want to talk to you about it and see if we can help. At the very least, you can take your quiz, take your answers, go tell somebody to do something. That's all that.